is one more short note might be asked in some universities about the cytoskeleton. So let's discuss few functions about the cytoskeleton. The major question is about the cell membrane, right, and the cell junction, but cytoskeleton can be asked, so this topic should not be left over. So let's discuss about the cytoskeleton. What is the cytoskeleton is? This is the system of fibers which maintains the structure of cells, which maintain the structure of cell, and that's why it maintains the structure of cell. Cell means cyto and skeletal, which is providing the support and hence maintain the structure. That is why it is known as cytoskeleton, right? What else? This is the first function. What else? The functions of cytoskeleton: it allow cell to change the shape, right? That means helping in the this thing, you're stretching, whenever the stretching occurring over there, it is helping in that too. So help or allow to change the shape of the particular cell, right? Now what is the third function? It permits the movement. Inside the cell as well as across the cell, right? So what are they? The components of this cytoskeletal system is, cytoskeleton of the cell is microfilaments, microtubules. They are the tubular structure. Filaments, that means they are a thread-like structure, that's why they are known as microfilaments, while microtubules are those which are the tubular structures, right? And last thing is protein binding them, right? So this is all about the cytoskeleton. This can be asked as a 2 marks question only, that's why I am not going into detail. So let's move on to the part of a cytoskeleton, that is the camps. You heard of camps a lot because this is the examiners are fond of asking this camps. Now what is this camps are? They are the cell adhesion molecules. Cell adhesion molecules, they are like the stuck inside the glue, right? They can stick two cells in between one another, right? It is like a glue. So what is the glue? The cell membrane, the cell adhesion molecules are present between the two cell membranes, right? So the adhesion molecules, the cells are attached to each other by molecules. Those are known as cell adhesion molecules, right? This is the simplest simplest definition about the cell adhesion molecule. Now what they do is they transmit these signals in or out of the cell, right? First thing first, they transmit the signals. Why these camps are important, you should be knowing, right? We are learning the physiology, you should be knowing the mechanism, how they act, and what is the clinical significance of that particular molecule, right? So camps are helping to transmit the signals in or out. A few examples, remember always give the examples in the exam. So examples are laminin, integrin, your immunoglobulins, for example IgG, cadherin and selectin, and so on and so forth, right, etc. Cadherin selecting IgG, that is immunoglobulins, right? If we discuss so much about this, let's discuss where they are important, right? What is the functions of CAM, why they are important, what is the significance. So basically they are important in embryonic development, they are important in development, right, as well as they are important in formation of most important structure, that is your nervous system, formation of nervous system. Then what else? If they are the adhesion molecules, they should be holding the cells together, so they are important in holding tissues together, holding tissues together. What else? They are also important for the process of inflammation and wound healing. Most important function, right? Wound healing. Last but not the least, in the tumors, especially with those tumors which can metastasize. What do you mean by metastasis? The tumor cells, if they broke down, they will go from one area to the another area and they will cause the extend the tumor over there. So that's why your CAM molecules will try to adhere those tumor cells together and not let them go and flow through the blood and incorporate somewhere else, right? So over there your CAM molecules are very important. If somebody asks you what is the clinical significance, you should be knowing these 2 points, right? At least these 2 points. Okay, what if these CAM molecules go abnormal, they go crazy, then cells with normal CAMs, what will happen to them? If your body working normally in the physiological state, what will happen to these CAMs? They will lead to, this is a short form I am using everywhere, they leads to apoptosis. Another very important topic, that is apoptosis. Apoptosis, right? If the CAM molecules go crazy, they go abnormal, our body will activate the process of apoptosis against it. So if we came to the apoptosis, let's discuss. This can be your long question also, right? So you should be knowing what is apoptosis, right? It is, in short, it is programmed cell death. Remember, it is not happening by the chance, it is programmed by your body or your brain, right? So it is the programmed cell death, and this is, remember, it is under genetic control. It is under genetic control, right? You can elaborate this apoptosis as much as you want, but I am giving you the basic or the baseline, right? So that you can write it in the exam. So it is programmed. Remember this word, it is the programmed cell death. It is not happening by chance, right? So if apoptosis is programmed cell death, there must be a mechanism, right? It is the examiners are asking it as a long note, right? So there must be something to write in. So there are 2 major pathways through which it will act as the intrinsic and extrinsic. Remember, this can be a long note question. I saw the questions of the apoptosis on the 6 marks also, right? So intrinsic pathway, it acts through intrinsic pathway as well as extrinsic pathway. Now in the intrinsic pathway, you should be knowing the mitochondria is involved. First point should be the mitochondria is involved. Remember, always remember, if there are two or more pathways or two things, you should be knowing the two different ways and how you can differentiate between two, right? And what are the similarities between these two, because this can be a question that explain the two pathways of apoptosis, intrinsic and extrinsic, compare and contrast, right, for the 2 or 3 marks, right? You should be knowing that mitochondria is involved where the mitochondria is not involved in extrinsic pathway, right? What are the stimulus? Always remember, you should be knowing what is triggering this apoptosis. So trigger for this or stimulus is radiation, growth hormone withdrawal, not the growth hormone, it is the growth hormone withdrawal. So if the growth hormone withdrawal from a particular cell, that cell undergo apoptosis, that is programmed cell death or organogenesis. Remember, whenever the fetus is developing, they do have the cells in between the phalanges also, like a duck, right? But what happened to those cells as the fetus grows, right? The fetus, as soon as it started to grow inside the womb of a mother, these cells undergo apoptosis. So we until the time the delivery occurs, the baby have phalanges or fingers, right, which we can move in the different direction, right? So that is important for the normal functioning. Now what happens, we discuss about the stimulus of intrinsic. Let's discuss about the extrinsic also. T cell, right? Viruses, many are viruses, cancer cells, autoreactive T cells, autoreactive T cells, they can be the trigger for the extrinsic pathway of the apoptosis. So let's draw a simple diagram by looking at which the examiner will know that you very well know and aware of this concept, right? So there will be a receptor on which the stimulus, that is your all these factors will act on, right? So they will stimulate this receptor for the apoptosis, right? Now there are sensors which are known as BH3 sensors. If you remember well, if you do not, it's okay, right? So BH3 sensors are there which will activate the apoptotic gene, which will activate the apoptotic gene, right? So once this apoptotic gene will be activated, what happens? We know that the mitochondria is involved in this. Yes, the mitochondria is involved in this pathway. So let's draw a mitochondria. Right. So suppose this is the mitochondria which is involved. Now what happen is, this is the cytochrome C. We have to elaborate this, right? This is the red one is the cytochrome C, right? This is the cytochrome C, and this is the M gate. This is the M gate. That's why I draw in the manner of M, through which the cytochrome will come out of the mitochondria. Remember, M for mitochondria, M for your M gate, right? The cytochrome C will come out from the mitochondria through the M gate in the pathway of apoptosis. Which pathway? The intrinsic pathway. What we draw over here is the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane, and this is the mitochondria. Now once the cytochrome C come out of the mitochondria, what it will cause is, it will activate something known as APAF1. APAF1. What is this APAF1? It is nothing but the apoptosis activating factor. Apoptosis activating factor, which further will activate an enzyme which is a very important enzyme, that is your caspase 9. If you remember the number, it's very good for you. If you do not, you should at least know the name of the enzyme, that is caspase, right? Caspase 9. Now, there is further pathway, but that we will discuss because that is a common pathway for extrinsic as well as intrinsic, right? That is the similarity. Now, let's discuss few facts about the extrinsic pathway, that it get activated by these stimulus, right? Now, what happens is there is a T cell, right? And there is a ligand, that is fast ligand. Fast ligand, if it is having a ligand, it should be having a receptor, which is also known as the fast receptor. Fast receptor, right? When this complex is attached to the T cell, what happens is it get activated, and inside the cell membrane they will form the FATT, right? Fast activation factors, right? So once it is getting, you can write FATT, activation, right? Once those get activated, what will happen? This will in turns will activate some caspases again. But remember, this is the different pathway, so caspases number will be different too. It is 8 and 10, right? How to remember? This is extrinsic, right? Join these two, it will be 8. So remember like that. If I have to write in the intrinsic factor, how I can write? In the cursive language, we can write like this, right? So it is not the 1, join this, it will be 9, right? So it is my way of giving you the mnemonic so that you can remember the numbers also, right? But at least remember the name of an enzyme, which is the caspase, right? Which is caspase. Now once this is activated, what happened? The next is either it is by intrinsic or extrinsic, this both will activate the another caspases, which are the 3, 6 and 7, which will cause the activation of endonucleases, proteases and lipases, right? As means something to break down, that you know from the biochemistry, right? So endonuclease, which will break down the nuclear membrane, right? The protease, which will break down the proteins, and lipids, which will break down the lipids, which is the lipases, right? So with that, what happens is there is a DNA cleavage. Is all this, the death of the cell is there, right? So but there will be no inflammatory sign because it is a programmed cell death. It is a programmed cell death. So that is all about the apoptosis. This can come as a long question, right? So you should be knowing what is the pathway, or in the compare and contrast, you will get the question about the extrinsic and intrinsic pathway of the apoptosis, right? If it is a long note question, you should be knowing about the physiological significance. Now, what is the physiological significance of this? Physiological significance is, first is in the embryonic development, as we already discussed in the fingers, right? In the Mullerian duct and other things, right? In the adulthood also, it will help. Now, how? Let's see. First, write down for the regression of duct system, right? Regression of duct system, which will lead to sex differentiation in the fetus. Sex differentiation in the fetus, right? Male and female, right? male or female. What next is degeneration and regeneration of neurons. Remember, very important factor or very important function of this apoptosis is and regeneration of the neurons and for formation of synapse. This is a very interesting fact which we are going to discuss in the CNS. So we wait for the CNS, but for now you should be knowing that regeneration and degeneration of the neurons and for the formation of the synapse, the apoptosis is important. Then in the removal of inappropriate clones, very different clones are forming, right, in the different variation, but which are inappropriate. They should be removed from our body, otherwise the mutation will takes place, especially of the immune cells, right. Now the next function is about the cyclical shedding of endometrium in the menstrual cycle of the female. The cycle happening in the monthly manner, right. So every month the female is going to shed their endometrial lining if the ovum is not getting fertilized, right. That we'll discuss in detail in the reproductive, but for now you should be remembering the apoptosis is actually taking place over there, right. And what else, the shell shedding also in the males and as well as female of villi in small intestine, which is coming out of the body through the feces, right. Every day the thousands and thousands cells undergoing apoptosis, which are actually forming the villi in the small intestine, right. So the apoptosis is actually helping in the day-to-day life also, right. What is the applied aspect of it? We discussed the physiological significance. The applied is if there is an abnormal pathways of apoptosis or the mechanism of apoptosis, what will happen? Autoimmune disease can be seen, right. Autoimmune disease or degenerative diseases, or the very important thing is the cancer. If this abnormal process of apoptosis is going on in the body or it is absolutely not taking place, then the cancer can take place, degenerative disease because of various mutations, and the autoimmune disease can be taking place because of this abnormal apoptosis. So you should be remembering this about the apoptosis. So this is about the general physiology topic, that is the apoptosis, right.